So today's Amud is Daf Ches Amud Aleph, but we are still at the bottom of Daf Zayin Amud Beis. We're up to the Mishnah, the new Mishnah, the second Mishnah in Elin HaGoylin. Nishmat habarzel mikatay, mikitay. So the Mishnah is really discussing that which it says in the pasuk. The pasuk says classical case of Golos, or one of the classical cases of Golos. It says if you've got those vahadar, so it's oizvav. The Varim Peg, you test pasuk hey. The pasuk says someone's going in the forest to cut wood. The barzel slips from the eight. So the question is, what does the noshal barzel min eight mean? That the iron slips from the wood. We're going to have a machlokes over here in the Mishnah. The two cases of the Mishnah are shnei tzadim shaloshim, not there, two sides of the same coin. The reason why Rabbi and the Chacham argue in the Reisha is the same reason why they argue about this in the Sefer, because they're basically arguing about what the noshal barzel min eight means. When we say the noshal barzel min eight, doesn't mean the metal, you're holding an axe, right? So the blade falls out of the handle, the wooden handle, or does it mean that you're cutting wood and a piece of the wood slips from the tree and kills somebody? What's killing the person? Is it the barza? Is it the blade falling from the slipping from the wood of the handle of the axe? In other words, the axe is splitting into two and half of it's flying out, and Staf Zayin Amud Beis, the Mishnah at the bottom. Yeah. So says the Mishnah like this: Nishmat habarzel mikate v'harag kitoi. If the blade slips from the wooden handle and kills somebody, Rabbi Omer, ain't a goyla, Chacham Omer goyla. Rabbi says you're not goyla, but Chacham Omer goyla. The reason is because the Chacham say this is trying to pass of a noshal barzel min eight. The noshal barzel min eight, according to the Chacham, means that the blade of the knife of the axe slips out of the handle. That's what the Chacham say. That's where they say goyla. Rabbi says no, ain't a goyla. That's not pshat v'noshal barzel min eight. What then is pshat v'noshal barzel min eight? The next case, min eight hamispakeya. If part of the tree which you're cutting, it's a spark of a piece of the tree, a piece of the wood that you're cutting flies out. Rabbi Omer goyla, Chacham Omer goyla. Rabbi says you goyla, and Chacham say ain't goyla, because Rabbi says this is pshat v'noshal barzel min eight. The noshal barzel min eight means that the blade that you're cutting causes min eight. We'll see the Gemara explains it in more detail, but basically the noshal barzel min eight means not that the iron itself, the metal blade itself is slipping, rather the metal blade is causing part of the tree to slip out. Says Rashi min eitzam ispakeh yotza kisem and nitzes lemirochi v'hara. That a little kisem, a splinter, shoots out at a distance and it kills some. Let's see the Gemara. Tanya amlem Rabbi l'chacham. The Rabbi said to the Chacham, I'm going to give you an argument as to why I'm right, why it must be, we talk the pasuk of noshal barzel min eight must be referring to mina eitzam ispakeya, that the part of the tree is flying, not the blade from the handle. Amlam Rabbi l'chachamim v'chinem of a noshal barzel mi'itzoi. Does it say that the iron slips out of its mi'itzoi, from its piece of wood, from its handle? It says from a eight, which means the tree. And furthermore, Nemar eitz lamata, Nemar eitz lamala. Over here it says the noshal barzel min eight, and it says eitz lamala. Earlier on it says that you're going in the forest, vagarzen with an axe, lichroi, so eitz to cut the tree. So just like over there it's talking about the tree, so to over here the eitz means the tree. Nemar eitz lamata, Nemar eitz lamala. Ma eitz alma lamala, just like the eitz earlier when it says lichroi min eight is referring to the tree being cut. So excuse me. Just like the eight earlier is talking about the wood which is being cut. So to over here, the eight when it says the noshal barzel min eight, it means that the part of the tree is flying out, but not that the blade is slipping out of the handle. So that is what Rabbi says. The Chum, two arguments as to why he learns that the noshal barzel min eight means that it's the tree which is flying out. It's a piece of the tree, a piece of the wood which is being cut, which is flying out. Rav Chiya bar Ashi says further. The way the Mefarshim explain is Rav Chiya bar Ashi is going further, not to negate anything which was said till now, to give further biur as to why Rabbi and the Chachamim argue about pshat in the noshal barzel min eight, whether it refers to the actual axe splitting into two, or it refers to the wood flying out. So Rav Chiya bar Ashi says they're both being dorish the same pasuk. The noshal barzel min eight, they're going on the word the noshal of a noshal barzel min eight. It literally means it slips. The noshal, it slips. Rabbi sava yesh eim lemaseiris. Rabbi holds yesh eim lemaseiris. What does yesh eim lemaseiris means? That when we want to darshan what a word means, we go basa the way it was handed over. We means to say we go basa the way We go after the way it's written in the Torah. So the word v'noshal is vav nun shin lamed, and it could be read v'nishal ksiv. It could also be read v'nishal with a chirek, which means to cause something to cause something to slip. So v'nishal abarzum min ha'eit, according to Chachamim, means v'noshal abarzum min ha'eit is read. Is darshan, shall we say? It's read v'nashal, but it's darshan, since the way it's written is v'nashal, it could also be read v'nishal. V'nishal abarzal means the ayin causes to slip min or eight from the wood, meaning from the wood which is being cut. Yeah, from the tree, or the wood which is being cut, even if it's off the tree.
Not the actual
yes. Rabbanan savri yashem lemikra. No, Rabbanan say yashem lemikra. Whenever we dorish pshat in a word, we don't look at how it's written, but rather how it's read. In other words, how we makabel how it's read. No, v'noshal karina. V'noshal karina, which means that it slipped. Whatever we're talking about slipped. So that we're talking about the axe itself. Okay, so that's what that was. Pause over here, see Rashi for a moment. Nema eat lamata v'noshal abarzim and eight. So nema eat lamata lichroitz eight to cut the eight. So just like before, it's talking about the wood which is being cut. So too over here, v'noshal abarzim and eight is referring to the tree, the wood which is being cut, not to the axe itself. Yash eim l'masoris kemosha nimshra ksav shal tevel l'Moshe onu tzrichin l'dorsha. The way the written word was handed over to Moshe, that's how we have to explain it. But lo lefi hamikra, not the way we read it. The noshal, when you read it, the noshal at Mosif Havarosh at Aleph Oishal Hey. The noshal, it's almost as if it has an Aleph there. That's how it's read. Bein nun l'shin. Or lefia masoris, but according to the way it's read, v'nishal ksiv. It can be, it could be not the way it's read. According to the way it's written, sorry, lefia masoris, it could be read v'nishal ksiv. It's written v'nishal. Or peirusha nishal shehishal abarzim and eitim is bakei matzas re'eu, that the iron from the blade causes the wood which is being cut to fly out or matzas re'eu and to find his friend and to kill him. Rabbanu sav yashem lemikra. Did it cause? It caused the barzal caused the wood to Rabbanu sav. Yeah, it pushed it, like it slipped. Mina eights, not that it itself slipped, but it caused to slip. Rabbanu sav yashem lemikra. The noshagin lashon paal barzal asmi nosham ala itza. Lashon of paal, which means the barzal itself is slipping. So that is how the Rabbi Rashi explains it. Now the Gemara is going to challenge it. How can you say such a thing? How can you say that Rabbi's pshat is based on Yashem L'Masoris? We know the Rabbi always holds Yashem L'Mikra. So that's Gemara's kasha. Fred the Gemara, but Rabbi Yashem L'Masoris, does Rabbi really hold Yashem L'Masoris? V'Omar Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef and Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef says the name Rabbi Yochanan is in Gemara in Sanhedrin. Rabbi Yehuda ben Royetz, Rabbi Shammai, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Kiva, Kulasfir, Yashem L'Mikra. The whole list of Tanoim, and Rabbi is one of them who holds Yashem L'Mikra. So if he holds Yashem L'Mikra, how can you say that pshat in Rabbi is because of Yashem L'Masoris? The Gemara basically answers, and here you need to add something because the Pash pshat in the Gemara is a little bit more difficult to understand. So I'm explaining the Gemara the way the Ritva explains it. That basically, you're right. Really, usually Rabbi holds Yashem L'Mikra. Over here, Rabbi holds Yashem L'Masoris. Why does Rabbi hold Yashem L'Masoris? Because of the two reasons mentioned above in the Braisa. In other words, usually, yes, Taki usually he would hold Yashem L'Mikra, and over here he would say V'noshal Karina, he would agree to the Chachamim. But he has two rayas. One it says Mino 8, and the other is Gzeir Shava 8. So those two reasons are machriach him to say that Yashem that over here, as an exception to what he usually says, the Yashem L'Masoris. Hainu the Ka'amalu V'oi. This is pshat when it says V'oi, meaning to say that that's Taka why he offers two reasons, because one reason wouldn't be good enough. One reason you could say, what do you mean? But Yashem L'Mikra. So that's why he offers a va'oi, the second reason. The two reasons are to explain why he's veering away from the usual pshat of Yashem, what he usually would hold, which is Yashem L'Mikra, and over here he's saying Yashem L'Masoris. Okay. Zok Rashi. Yeah, let's quickly. Rashi had the Vizchak Bereis Sanhedrin Shmaitz Kamaisa. This Rav Yitzchak statement is in Sanhedrin, the first sugi over the end of Dalet. Hainu to Kahad Rabbi v'Amar va'oi l'milfa b'Gzeir Shava, to bring Gzeir Shava, which is much stronger, a stronger reason to explain why over here he makes an exception to what he usually holds, and here we say Yashem L'Masoris and not Yashem L'Mikra. Says the Gemara right, Amr Papa, man the shod pisa l'dikla, someone who throws. Pisa means a piece of earth, regav gush offer, a solid piece of earth. Va'osar tamri, and it hits a date. Va'ozul tamri v'kotl, and the date goes and kills. Who did kill him? He explains would kill like a child. The date's not going to kill, right? But it could kill a child. The date. Huh?
It's the size of a bullet, the date. So.
Yeah, the date falls on someone's head. It's not going to kill him usually. Okay, so I saw in the
date that you're considering is a dry date. So,
it's a date from the tree.
The date from the tree is a little bit
heavy. Okay. Akaponim, that's what the Meiri. I saw in the Meiri. The Meiri says that it's talking about it like he kills a child, whatever. kashrei f'maisa, kill somebody. So bonu l'machlokas Rabbi Rabbanan. Says the Papa that we've come to the machlokas Rabbi Rabbanan. What's pshat? We've come to machlokas Rabbi Rabbanan because what did Rabbi say? Rabbi was the one who said he can be goyle, eight samispakeya. So, which means to say that even if it's not the thing you're using itself, it's something which is removed from it, flies out. So the same thing over here. Rabbanan will say you're not goyle because it's not the actual instrument that you're using which slips, right? It's not like the ladder which you're going on or the axe which is slipping. It's something else. Over here, it's the date. The Rabbi would say that no, it's doima to the case of mina eitzah mitzpakeya, and therefore you're goyla. So yeah. So the Gemara says pshita, it's obvious. What are you telling me? It's mamish like the machlekes Rabbi Rabbanan. So the Gemara says no, it's not mamish like the case of Rabbi Rabbanan. Why not? Mal the tema koya koichi dami kimash malo. Basically, what the Gemara is saying is like this: that I might think it's different. In the case when you're cutting the wood, you'll.
What's the problem? Mishnah? If you kill someone, you're goyla. No, what does that have to do? How it happens?
So the Mishnah says.
Or is it an effect of why the person died? If it's the actual act,
so
or
just
you knock something, a piece went flying. Isn't that
like a guidance? So like a guidance, a higher
gram to gram kind of thing?
I don't think that's in the Mishnah necessarily. I hear
but it comes out to be
it's similar to that. No, the Mishnah is basically saying that do we learn out of as to why that's the case, by the way. In other words, we already saw the psukim, right? The question is, what does v'noshla barzal min ha'etz mean? Does v'noshla barzal min ha'etz means that the actual keli that you're using flies out, or could it be something else? Rabbi says for whatever reason, based on the psukim, the v'noshla barzal min ha'etz means, sorry, the Rabbanan hold the v'noshla barzal min ha'etz means the actual keli flies, and Rabbi says that it's something else. It's min ha'etz mispakeya. So we're applying it to other cases. What's takab pshat? Yeah, maybe with the Havana. So some say that it's karev l'mezid when it's
coming from the metal itself.
When it's coming from the metal itself, Rabbi would say it's karev l'mezid. Some say it's karev l'oinus. Different pshatim exactly why. But so yeah. Let's move on. Yeah. So let's just so the Gemara wants to say that any situation is the same thing. In other words, when does the Rabbanan say goyla? Only when it's the actual keli you're using, which you're using an axe. The axe hits somebody. But if it causes something else, so that's when Rabbi would say goyla, not the Chachamim. Fred the Gemara obvious. Pshita. So the Gemara says no. I might have thought that even Rabbi over here will patter. Why will even Rabbi patter? Because it's not like Eitzah Mitzvah. By the case of Eitzah Mitzvah, your axe is coming into contact with the wood. Over here, you're throwing the piece of earth. The piece of earth is hitting the date, and the date is hitting somebody. Maybe that's considered koyach koyach. It's further removed, and therefore you're not chayav. Shita ma'ad the koyach koyach dam. It's not mamish your koyach. It's koyach koyach. It's more indirect, and you're not chayav galos. Kamash malan. The chiddush is that no, that it's considered koyach. So then the Gemara asks. We'll see Rashi in a minute. Then the Gemara asks, Ela koyach koyach the Rebbe heicham mishkakas. If you're considering that to be koyach mamish, what's koyach, which Rabbi would patter. So going to shoda pisa or michi legarma v'asal garmi or michi lekavasa v'asal tamri v'asal tamri v'katal. I'll translate. If you're going to shoda pisa, you threw the same thing. You threw a piece of earth. Or michi legarma v'asal garma or michi lekavasa v'asal tamri v'katal.
Stuck each other and fell together.
The piece of earth hit a twig. The twig then hit the date, and the date
that's already
removed.
That's far-fetched.
Yeah. Rashi says. Yeah, Rashi. Let's see Rashi. Banu l'machleges dahainu tum piece of rag gush off of also tamri v'heshi tomorrow remove dates. Banu l'machleges dahainu dumi d'benayis mispakeh. Mao the tema hol the Rabbi ki koyach koyach damu pater. I might have thought the according to Rabbi is considered koyach koyach, and even Rabbi would hold pater. Sharegav koyach, which the piece of earth was your first koyach. On the Shiur satamar my koyach sheni was more removed. It's the second koyach. Kamash malan. Sharegav ki garzim atamarim ki kisam hanitas. The regav is mamish like the garzim. The piece of earth, since it's coming from your hand, is like the axe. The dates are like the eitzah mishpakeh, like the wood from which you're cutting. So what's taka koyach according to Rabbi? We say legarma who eats hakaroy shatmar employing the twig. Or michi lekubsa, it hits the kubsa who eshkol atmar mekubatzim yachad. This is the cluster of dates. So it hits a twig. The twig
really knocked out a whole bunch of it. It wasn't like it's one date fell.
But that's not
Yeah.
But the point over here is it's further removed.
It's further removed. That can just be pottery.
Yeah. Okay. Next Mishnah. Hazorik Evan l'shus rabim v'harek hari zegoyla. The Mishnah says that someone who throws an Evan to l'shus rabim v'harek hari zegoyla. Threw an Evan to l'shus rabim, you're goyla. The Gemara is going to explain what the chiddush is. In other words, what's going on over the Gemara will explain. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov says, "Im yotza ever miyadei hoitzi alo esrei shevekibla hari ze potter." Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov says many Rishonim learn that Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov is not really arguing with the Tanakh. He's just saying a different case. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov is saying that in a certain situation you'll be potter. When will that situation be that you're going to be potter? When you throw an evan. When you throw an evan, and at the time when you throw the evan, the guy's head wasn't where the evan landed. The guy stuck his head out of the window. So then you're going to be potter.
You go to school when we were kids, you go to a school bus, don't stick your head out. It's not a joke. Another truck can come by and boom. So some say because it's not, he kind of brought it on himself. You can't be chayiv galus in such a situation because the nizik, the person who got killed, the nerag, we're going to learn how to psuk him as well. This is something we already discussed in the previous brisa, but here we have it in the Mishnah. If you threw a stone into your own chutz and it killed somebody, so then it depends. If someone has rishus to be in there, so right, if the person who's being killed was visiting you, or you told him that you can come into my garden whenever you want, you can come into my backyard whenever you want, so then goyla. Vim lav ain't a goyla. But let's say he had no permission to be in your rishus, he's not goyla. Shenem v'ashayova yisrei v'yar, because it says in the pasuk v'ashayova yisrei v'yar. The classical case which is discussed when talking about golus is that someone goes into the forest. So we say, well, why forest? So we learn from a forest. Ma yar is shus nizikal mazli konis l'sham. Af kol shus nizikal mazli konis l'sham. Just like a forest is something, it's a rishus rabbim. It's a place where equally the mazik and the nizik both have equal permission and rights to be there. So too, you only chayiv golos in a place where the nizik and the mazik both have rishus to be there. Yotza chotza balabay she'ein rishus l'nizik. And according to some girsayis, so the mazik l'konis l'sham. The point is that in the chotza balabay, the nizik doesn't have right to be there. So therefore, in a case when he doesn't have right to be there, you never gave him permission to come, so then you're not going to be chayav. And I guess part of the argument is, one of the arguments at least, according to some Rishonim, is that he has no right to be here. If he has no right to be, I couldn't have expected him to be here, and I'm not chayav. There's no shoygig. It's more like an onus. I didn't expect anyone to be in my rishus.
They're both illegal.
Some don't. It's more like
Because you're not allowed to make mistakes in your own thing either. What's psulah mazik? That's what he's saying. What
do you say?
The ulam mazik, you're not
So
allowed to make because in your own.
The Marsha takes out the mazik, and the reason that
What does Marsha say?
takes it out. I can't remember exactly what, because the point over here is that the nizik doesn't have rishus.
Correct, and it's obviously it belongs to private property.
But some say that the mazik also has to have rishus. In other words, if it was a situation where both don't have rishus,
What it means is very simple. A mazik, even in his own rishus, you can't stop make hazekis. Even in your own rishus, you can't stop make hazekis. Why not? Because
you're not going to be chayiv galus. You're not going to be chayiv galus for doing so.
You go upstate today. You go upstate when people go hunting. There has to be signs there, and there's only certain times. They go to your own property. You can't just go hunting anytime you want.
And we're talking about being chayiv galus for killing somebody.
So you go hunting and he killed somebody else by mistake. There has to be signs outside, posted signs that there's hunting. You go upstate there during the summer, the winter, you'll see all over. A bunch of places there's signs there. And there's only certain months a person's allowed to, there's only certain times. And even in your own rishus, there's laws what you're allowed to do. So I'm saying, what I
He takes out the mazik, yeah. He takes out the mazik. But it's interestingly enough, there's two different svaras. Some say it has to be doimet to yar mamish. What happens, for example, just a second, what happens, for example, you give somebody, you know he's there, you didn't give him permission. You didn't give him permission, you know he's in your backyard. So if the reason is yar, it's exeris akasa from yar, I don't care whether I know that he's there or not. He has no rishus to be there. So I'm not chayiv galus. It's exeris akasa kind of thing. But if there's more of a reason, which is that I shouldn't have expected him to be there, then if I know he's there, then I'm not going to be chayiv galus. Just a little, okay. Weiter. Abba Shal said we learn something else from the word yar. What do we learn out of the word yar? From the example of the cutting wood. That we learn from yar that just like over there when you're cutting eitzim, it's talking about a situation where you're cutting eitzim because you want to cut eitzim. In other words, there's no mitzvah involved in cutting the wood. Afkol rishus is we only chayiv galus when you're involved in a rishus activity. Yotza ha'ava makkos b'nei v'rav reides tamidu shliach bezin. These three examples where it's where you're involved in a mitzvah. Ha'ava makkos b'nei, an av who's hitting his son for disciplinarian reasons, not stamazai. Yeah, so he is involved in a mitzvah. So therefore, he is he chas v'shalom by mistake killed him. He's not going to be chayiv galus. But Rav Aroides Talmidei, Rav who's disciplining his Talmud, the same thing. Or Shliach Bezdin, most Rishonim learn, he's talking about a situation where he's giving Malkus, and while he's giving him Malkus, he kills him. And since he's involved in a mitzvah, so therefore he's pater from Galus. Okay, so that's how's that learned? It's learned from Yar, but just like by cutting wood, you're doing an optional thing. So therefore, we learn that you're only chayav galus involved in optional activities. But if you're involved in a mitzvah, something you should be doing, and somehow went wrong, and you killed the person, so then you part from galus. Rashi on the Mishnah, Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov, Mefarish time, the Gemara is going to explain the reason why Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov says that if he sticks out his head later, after the Evan already went out of the hand of the Hoyreg, he's parta. However, Makkos b'nei la toisa l'derech acheres or l'derech emes. He's trying to discipline him to the proper way. Or shliach bezin hamal karbam l'chayiv malchus. He's giving malchus to somebody who's chayiv malchus. Okay, so let's see the Gemara. So the Gemara goes on the first case. Hazorik Evan l'shus harab. The Mishnah says Hazorik Evan l'shus harab. Maharik hari zagayre. So the Chura, what's going on over there? The Gemara asks, Akasha l'shus harab mezidu. You're throwing an Evan to the shus harab at the beginning of the Gemara. That's Chesam Adala for those who just joined. Just learn the Gemara without the Mishnah. Yeah. So the Gemara asks Akasha. The shus harab mezidu doesn't mean literally mezid. Rather, it means karev lemezid. Yeah. I think Tyson Baba Kam explains this. The Shus Harabim Mezidu. The Gemara is asking if you throw something to Shus Harabim, you should expect people to be there. You're throwing an Evan to the Shus Harabim, doesn't that mamish Mezid? It's Karv Mezid. Of course you're not Chayiv. Of course you shouldn't be Chayiv Galas. Why Taka you Chayiv Galas? Why does the Mishnah say Chayiv Galas? Amr Shmuel Yisrael says you have to understand it's not talking about literally a Zorik Evan. You're just randomly throwing a stone for entertainment purposes. But rather, Besoy says Kaisa. You're knocking down your wall. Your wall's dilapidated. It's falling over, and you need to knock it down. So you need to knock down your wall, so you're not amazing. Huh? So Gemara, no, not yet. I'm just beside this place. So Gemara straight away asks you, boy, Leon. So what if you're knocking down the wall? You've got a reason to knock down your wall, but you should check. So Gemara is beside this place to Belayla. Talking about night, and therefore you shouldn't expect anybody to be there. At the end of the day, it's a night time. You still could look. As much as you could look. Maybe you don't have as much vision as usual, or maybe there's less people, so you have to be less worried. But still, you should still look as much as you can. Be mavar, and if you didn't look, it's going to be carved lamezit. So the Gemara answers, you're right. If it was a Rishus Harabim where many people are mamish walking up and down, that's taka carved lamezit. I don't care yoim laila. I don't care whether you're throwing the Evan or you're being soiseris koisloi. That's carved lamezit. Here we're talking about situations, not mamish a regular Rishus Harabim. It's soiseris koisloi la ashpa. Ashpa is a garbage heap. Yeah. So why is it called a Shus Harabim? Because Shus Harabim means that a lot of people go. In other words, it's used by the rabbin. But at the end of the day, it's not. It's an ashpa. It's a garbage heap, and therefore it's less of a issue. Less people there. Gemara says, still, I don't understand. Hi ashpa yichidami.
Ashpa means there was a dump that was there, or like let's say he brought a dumpster, and he was hoping it all fall in a dump truck.
Ashpa, I think, means like a public rubbish heap. Though people, the garbage heap, a public place.
Knocking it down straight into there. The wall was right there.
The wall was in next to this ashpa, and this ashpa was used by many people, and that's what we're calling a Shus Harabim. So Gemara straight away ask, this garbage heap, what's we talking about? What sort of garbage heap? If there's many people who use it, who are there, then he's weiter careless, he's weiter carv lemezi. And if people don't use it at all, it's like a unused ashpa, it hasn't been used, people are not constantly using it, they're not currently using it, shall we say, then honestly he's an honest. So Amr Papa says, "Lo yitzricha ela la'ashpa ha'asuya lifanis baba la'ila ve'ein asuya lifanis baba yom." Here we have an interesting situation. Taka, it's not talking about regular ashpa, because then regular ashpa is mimanafsha. Either it's an ashpa which people use, in which case you pay share, and if it's an ashpa which people don't use, then you are a onus. So what are we talking about? A special type of ashpa. Ashpa asuya lifanis baba la'ila. People use it, and asuya lifanis baba means that people go to the bathroom. Yeah, ba'laila, by night. It's a private place, there's no one there. By night they go and relieve themselves. The day they won't, because the ikka the mikri v'yosef. But however, there are some people who use it by day. So pesheya loy havad or eina so lefanis babiyon. He's not going to be considered a pesheya because people don't generally use it by day. He's knocking down the wall by day now, explaining, and people don't usually use it by day. But oinus nami loy havad or ikka the mikri v'yosef. He's talking on oinus either because sometimes people use it. So Tosfos asks the obvious question that L'chora, why do you have to give this crazy example? Just say it's an ashpa which people don't use, and once in a while someone uses it. So Tosfos explains that were that the case, that it's just an ashpa that sometimes people use, then there's still an element of shia, because you should have, sometimes people use it. Masha Enkin, if it's an ashpa which people use balayla, and it's just not bayoim, so then you should check. In other words, what?
If it's asilas balayla and not by yoim, and he did it by night, then it's more pshia. We should be more careful.
No, I did it by day.
Sorry, the other way around. My mistake, yeah. So he's saying that would be honest. Sorry. It would be honest. Were it to be an ashpa which you never was used, were it ashpa to never use them once in a while, someone uses it, then that's an honest. But if it's an ashpa which people do use by night, so you should be in the habit of looking. And just by yoim, it could be Yosef, so then you fall into the category of shogeg. Yeah, I made a mistake.
Would you call it Shiur if it's not? Because maybe part of it also, because we call it a Shiur.
Why is it called a Shiur? A technical thing, where the Mishnah calls it Shiur.
What's the mikveh b'yasif? The people that want to collect the bottle.
We're talking about using it as a bathroom, over
The
funnest. They sit there, they use it. Okay. The Rashi we saw, or we'll see now, the funnest, they use it to go to the bathroom. It could be also the funnest to use it by day. Okay. So that's basically, we've had to find a situation which is generally not used and sometimes used, but by night it's used. And by getting Azar, so we have a situation where the Shus Rabbim, it's a Shus Rabbim, it's not Mazid, it's Shaykh. Okay. Now explaining Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says that before that, that when you throw the Evan, the person has to be on the other side. If you throw the Evan and the person only sticks his head out of the window into the Shus Rabbim after you throw the Evan out of your hand, so it's going to be potter. So the question is, where do you get that from? Tan Rabbanon. Umotza prat lemamtzis as. The pasuk says Shayov Israel vayar. Umotza Israel. Later. V'noshla barzel min ha'etz. Umotza Israel. That the barzel slips out of the eight. We have two different shots on what that means, but whatever happens, the case of Golus is Umotza Israel, where the axe or the piece of wood finds your friend. So prat lemamtzis atzmi means to say that it comes to exclude lemamtzis atzmi, that something comes later that finds itself, so to speak. Umotza means that when you throw the piece of wood or stone, when it flies out of your hand, it then finds someone who was already there. That's how he learns. Umotza means that the person was already there. Prat lemamtzis atzmi, that the person kind of finds him, makes himself accessible by sticking out his head after you already threw the stone out of your hand. From here, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says, if it was after you threw the stone out of your hand, only then the other person brought out his head, took out his head, and was mekabel the Evan, and the Evan hit him. Potter, he's potter. Okay. So I think here too. Here too, it's a multiple time or something. At the end of the day, you can't be chayv golus for something which the other person brought upon himself. He stuck his head into the situation. He should have looked.
Yeah, but what about the comment? If a person breaks something when he went to sleep, the other thing was there before he went to sleep or not?
Yeah, but Golus is very different rule.
Golus is different, but but
you're saying the swar, the logic.
It's a little bit timeless. Makes sense. You're right. You can't, once you throw a rat, you can't let go.
Yes, I think people I've seen Mepharshim which say that that taka, it's like a karv la'oinus hastes. Yeah, that when you throw and someone's there, so you should have but if the person wasn't even there and after he threw the stone he sticks his head out, it's like an unexpected situation which you're not chayav. But he learns it out of the pasuk. Again, just because it's against doesn't mean it doesn't have a reason, right? So the Gemara is going to now ask on the drosha. Motza prat lemamtzis asked me sounds like the Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov's holding is saying that whenever it says Motza means the thing was already there. Now we're going to find a pasuk where Motza adrabah. Motza means that you find later. That later you come up with something, right? So let's see inside. Read the Gemara Kasha Uriminu. We have still remember the Motza meikar mashma. Are you telling me that whenever it says Motza meikar mashma means that the thing was already there? Uriminu, we have a stira. We have another brisa which says Motza prat lemotzoi. What's this talking about? It's talking about someone sells his steachus, sells a field which is it's an inheritance from his parents, it's from his shevet, right? So there's dinim about geula that you can redeem it. The lekeach, you can if you want to redeem it and buy it back from the lekeach, in certain instances you have the right to it. The lekeach has to give it back to you. You can redeem it. So the Gemara over there says, the brisa says, prat lemotzoi. That what's the lashon pasuk? The lashon pasuk is, if you see over here in pasuk base in the Torah of ishki lo yelo goyel, right? So usually a family member can be paid. But if you don't have a family member, if you can afford or motza kedei and you found the amount to redeem it, you sell a field because you have no money. But later you want the field back. You made some money, you won the lottery, you made some money, and now you want to buy the field back, so you can. So do we say, well, matzah, prat matzah? It comes to exclude a situation where you already had the money at the time of the sale. It wasn't that later you came up with the money. How did you have the money? So he gives an example. You shouldn't. You're not allowed to go and sell a field that you already have from a while ago, and it's further away, and you want to sell that field in order to redeem the closer field, or you've got a bad field, you want to sell the bad field. In all these situations, we're talking about a situation where you have the field, you have the means, you just didn't want it, right? So now you want to sell the rochik and be paid to the car of a barava, you go b'yafin. So then that's not called umatzah. It's not like you found something new which now changes your financial circumstances and now you can be paid. And that's when we allow you to be paid to the field. But if it's something that you already had these fields, and now you're just deciding to sell these fields because you like this field better, it's closer to your house, so it's right. So what do we see over here? One second. So what do we see over here? The umatzah implies later. Umatzah means that it finds later. The umatzah does fit a situation where you're only finding later, where it isn't at the time of so l'chura, why don't we say the same thing over here, that the guy who sticks his head out is considered umatzah? Your stone found him after even though he stuck his head out after the stone left your hand. So the Gemara answers, it depends, it's the context. Over there on the word umatzah, from the context we understand means that you later find the money, because dumi de visiga yada. It's straight after the word in the past we siga yada, that you could afford it. Just my siga yada master, just like his siga yada means that now I can afford, but earlier I couldn't afford. That's what his siga yada implies, that now I can afford to be paid it, and before not. Af matzah nami mehashta. So too, we understand that matzah also means that you found money, or you found fields which you found something to use to be paid your field that you sold. Now something new happened. But over here, by Golos Minyan the Crow Matzah Dumi the Yar, that the Matzah is coming behemshach to the Yar, Ma Yar Midi the Isa, just like the forest is a Midi the Isa. You're cutting in the forest. The forest exists. It's not something which comes into existence later. It's in existence when you cut the wood. After Matzah Nami Midi the Isa Mekar. So to the word Matzah we understand to mean that it finds something which was already in existence at the time when the stone fell out of your hand. So that's what the Gemara's basically said. That umatzah prat lemamtzi is atzmai. However, by atzam, it's not the lashon of umatzah per se, because the lashon of umatzah we see by being poida stay achuza, that umatzah taka means that you come up with the money later. You find something new. So the chura, the Evan by Golos, and someone sticking out his head should also be considered umatzah, because even though it's new. So we say no. The context in each case teaches me what umatzah means. In the case of Golos, umatzah is dumi de visiga yadoi, which implies that something new, financial situation changed. You can afford something now. And umatzah by the yar implies that the person was already there at the time when you cut the wood or threw the stone.
But it's there further, right?
Yeah.
You can be paid at any field in your.
You sold the you sold the
How
field.
do you have the ones over here, one close and one far? How do you have such a mistake?
Why not? Everyone's together. He's saying all your fields were together.
You inherited from your father, right?
Maybe it's closer to your house. Maybe it's closer.
No, I'm saying, how do you have such a mistake? You
Of
have
the-
two closest.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure.
You can be paid at any in your David from any in your David. No.
Oh, you sold something.
I think you can't be paid at any you can't be paid at any property in your David, right? It only has to be your chuzah.
You sell your stay achuza, and now you want to buy it back.
Right.
You could have one which was closer to your house, maybe closer to another field.
Maybe everybody got theirs in one parcel, no?
Let's see, you have one field here, one field here, one field here.
How do you get three different fields spread apart?
Not spread apart. 3 fields next to each other.
Oh.
You have 3 fields next to each other, and
One
you
was
sell.
next door,
Yeah, one was further away. Yeah. So you have now one. You want the 2 fields together. Okay. Weiter in the Gemara. Right. So the Gemara says, "V'chulu." Really good. It's really this Gemara is going on later. Yeah. Yeah. So we learn from the case of Yar that just like by the Yar, when you're cutting wood, what are you cutting wood for? You're cutting wood for your fireplace. You're cutting wood for a situation for your own personal needs. It's optional. No one's forcing you. There's no mitzvah involved. So we learn from that you can only be chayiv golos if you're involved in a reshustik activity. But if you're involved in a mitzvah activity, then you're part of from golos, and therefore it's yotza rava roides talmidoi hava makas b'noy rava roides talmidoi shtef bez. In these situations where you're involved with the mitzvah, so you're not going to be chayiv golos. So let's see the Gemara. The Gemara asked the kasha. One of the Amiroim, one of the Rabbanon asked the Rava kasha. How do you know the pasuk? The pasuk doesn't say why you're cutting wood. Maybe the pasuk, when it says you're cutting wood, isn't just referring to chatavas eitzim d'shus, you're cutting wood for your fireplace. Maybe the Torah is talking about a situation where you're involved in a mitzvah activity. You're cutting wood for your sukkah, you're cutting wood for the maracha, the wood for the mizbeach. Nevertheless, the Torah tells you go golos if you're cutting wood for your sukkah and the wood goes and flies out and kills somebody, you chayiv golos. And then we should learn from there that even when you're involved in a mitzvah activity, you are also chayiv golos. So why are we saying yotza ava makkos b'nei v'rabba is tamid shtech bezin? In other words, why are we assuming that chatavas eitzim is chatavas eitzim d'rshus? Maybe the cutting of the wood is the cutting of the wood for a purpose of a mitzvah. Amalei, so Rabbi answered back to him. There's going to be two truths, but at this stage he answers as follows: Given the matzah chatov lav mitzvah, we'll read it without the brackets, without parentheses. The matzah chatov lav mitzvah hashanami lav mitzvah. Rabbi said back to him like this: cutting wood for sukkah, cutting wood for atzim rach isn't really a mitzvah. What's my raya that it's not a mitzvah? Because what happens if you already had wood cut for your sukkah? You wouldn't have to cut wood. So it comes out the cutting wood is just a hachsha mitzvah, not really a mitzvah, because the only thing that can be considered a mitzvah is something you need to do. But if something is just you don't have wood, so you need to cut wood, but if were you to have wood, there wouldn't be a mitzvah involved, so that's not considered a mitzvah. That's what Rava answered to. Now, whenever you're cutting wood, there's no mitzvah of cutting wood. There's nothing in the Torah, right? If there was a mitzvah of cutting wood, there's no mitzvah of cutting wood. There's a mitzvah of building a sukkah. There's a mitzvah of having atzei maracha. You need to cut wood in order to get it. But if you would have wood, if you would have wood already cut, then you wouldn't need a cut. So raya that it's not considered a mitzvah, it's considered a category of hechsher mitzvah, and therefore there's no we're talking about rishus, and therefore yotza mitzvah. We exclude the case of a mitzvah. Yeah? What? Okay, that's the Torah says clearly. Yeah. No, that is a mitzvah. The mitzvah is halacha. But over here, we're not talking about cutting wood for sukkah, cutting wood for the atzei maracha. You need wood in the maracha. You don't need to cut wood. If you had wood cut, you wouldn't need to cut it. So even if where you do need to cut it, it's not considered a mitzvah. Okay, so now, hashanami lav mitzvah. So Eser Rabbi Rabbi asked Kash to Rabbi, just a second. You're saying that any situation where it's not necessary, you don't necessarily have to do it, right? You don't necessarily have to cut the wood. Because if you had wood cut, you wouldn't have to, it's not considered a mitzvah. What do you mean? The examples that you were moitzi, which are for sure a mitzvah, are also cases which you don't necessarily need to do it. Let's see. Lema, he talks about the case of Ha'ava Makkos B'nei V'Rabba Eidus Talmidim. Taisus will deal with the Shtech Bezdin, but the Gemara over here is asking a kash from Yotz Ha'ava Makkos B'nei V'Rabba Eidus Talmidim. When does the Av have to be Makkos B'nei? Is a mitzvah to be Makkos B'nei? No. If it's necessary. If necessary, you right? It's not necessary, you don't. Yeah, that's pshat. Av Makkos B'nei V'Rabba Eidus Talmidim. The Av is Makkos B'nei when he needs to. He needs to discipline his son. V'Rabba is Eidus Talmidim when he needs to discipline. But if he doesn't need a discipline, in other words, the mitzvah is chinuch. Sometimes you need a hit. That's not a mitzvah either. Elamai, Rabbi is saying to Rava, Elamai, your whole premise is wrong. Your premise is wrong. It must be right. It must be the Av Makkos B'nei V'Rabba Eidus Talmidim. It's considered a mitzvah despite it not being necessarily needed. Despite it being a hechsher mitzvah, it's considered a mitzvah. Let us say that if he was learning lav mitzvah, hashtanami lav mitzvah. Let us say there's no mitzvah per se to be makkos b'nai. If he was learning, there wouldn't be a mitzvah. So now too, now that he's not learning, it's a hachsha mitzvah for the chinuch, but it's not actual mitzvah. And the Mishnah doesn't take on that way. The Mishnah considers it a mitzvah. So miman afshach. In other words, why are you being yotza of a makkos b'nai v'rabba eidus talmidai when those are examples doimet to the chatavas eitzim? You could also have chatavas eitzim, which is a hachsha mitzvah. And nevertheless, you are chayiv galus. So why here you're not chayiv galus as well? So the Gemara answers no. Afagav the gomer mitzvah. This is an interesting Gemara. Contrary to Havamina, maybe even the popular conception that you only have to hit a child when he's misbehaving. No. Afagav the gomer mitzvah. The Gemara says that there's an Indian of hitting a child sometimes, even when he's learning. Brings in the pasuk that you should pain your child. You should inflict pain your child, inflict yisurim on your child. The Ritva explains it's talking about a situation that ultimately once in a while you need to hit him because it'll teach him the lesson for, it's not needed in the immediate, but it'll teach him the lesson long term. Okay, so that's what the Gemara says. That no, there's a taka mitzvah. Hada amarava. Turn over. Yeah, if we can. Yeah, Hada amarava lav milsi. Hada amarava Rava said lav milsi. Now there was that original thing that I said that chatavas eitzim that the reason why katavas eitzim isn't considered a mitzvah is because if you had wood cut, you wouldn't need a cut. So now also, in other words, it's not necessary. You don't actually need to cut the wood. It's only a hechsher mitzvah. Yeah, I don't need it anymore. Lav milsi, that's not true what I said. There's two different pshatim over Rashi learns that it is true, but I could have told you better. We'll see when you see Rashi. So in other words, you're not really being chayzer from the etzem hanocha earlier that katavas eitzim is considered hechsher mitzvah. He's just saying that they have a better teretz to explain why katavas eitzim of the golos is not considered a mitzvah. Hadam Rav Lav milsi the amri v'asher yavoyis rebayah from the word v'asher. V'asher yavoyis rebayah says Rava. The word asher implies that you so happens to be that you went in the forest. Asher, somebody who goes to the forest, but not somebody who needs to go into the forest. Yeah, the e-boy aisle, the e-boy loy aisle. We're not going to words mayar. Yeah? The emphasis on the word that the Mepharshim explains is the v'asher. The v'asher tells me the e-boy aisle, the e-boy loy. If he wants to go into the forest, he can go. If he doesn't want to, he doesn't need to go. So in other words, the word v'asher teaches me that we're talking about cutting the wood, which is rishus. If it's a mitzvah, misagi the aisle, could you not go? You have to go. The word v'asher implies that we're talking about katavas eitzim rishus, where you have a choice whether to cut wood or not. Okay, that's a nice pshat. But you're telling me that whenever it says asher, it means rishus. Whenever it says asher, it's like optional. If you want to, you can, and if you don't want to, you can't. If that's the case, you can't say that. I'll show you a passage where the word asher is used, and nevertheless, it's a chiyuv. When it says in pasuk, someone who's tamei and doesn't purify himself, then goes into the Beis Hamikdash, he's chayav kares, right? Bias mikdash. Someone goes into the Beis Hamikdash when he's tamei is chayav kares. Are you going to tell me it's only talking about asher yitma v'lo yischata? Only talking about a case where you optionally choose to become tamei? Are you going to tell me that in the case of a mace mitzvah where you don't have the option of being mitam or not, you have to be mitam for the mace mitzvah? You're going to tell me you're pata because the pasuk uses the word asher, which implies an optional situation of tumah. So the Gemara says, no, yeah, you're right. Were it just for the word asher, we'll learn that. And the reason why we say that it applies to all cases of tumah is shani hasan amakra tamei. It says the word tamei mikol makan. Fred the Gemara kasha humi boile l'chitani tamei l'rabbis tful yoyim. Tomasa boile l'rabbis l'chutz kippur in the Brisa tells me we know that in tumah there's different stages of being matayer. You go to mikvah and you become tired, but you're not totally tired, like in truma and other things, until you go to mikvah that night. And sometimes you need mechusik, right? By the zav and yoledes and other situations, you need to bring a carbon the next day. How do you know that if you went to the Beis Hamikdash after you quasi tahar and you haven't the mechusik kippurim, or you haven't waited for shkia to happen in a situation where that's necessary, that you still can't, that you still get kares? So that we learn from Tamayya and Tomasiboy. So we're back to our original question: where do we know that an option, that the mechuyev the case of Toma, like Meis Mitzvah, is also included in the kares? Amalei anami oid kamina. The word oid Tomasai, it teaches me that that includes even even when you have to become Tom. We'll quickly read the Rashi. I don't remember exactly where we were in Rashi. Umatza mashma shusham umatza l'shiyas nashla barzal. Prat lemamtias ma'achrin hoitzel as reish ben achalem kibel avim mitzchay. Umatza prat lematzi b'moicha sadach uzasu bala goy like sivi sigo yado. Umatza prat lematzi. Meaning to say, if the gula was already accessible, he already had the ability to be paid. When he sold it, ain't koifness lekech lasir. The lekech doesn't have to return it and let him redeem it, because it's only to a situation where he couldn't have redeemed. In other words, he didn't have the option of redeeming at the time of the sale. When he sold it, he really had to sell it. He really didn't have the money, and something changed. Famous Rashi, where Rashi implies that the making of the sukkah is a mitzvah, which is a discussion for itself, because the chora lasiyas sukkah is also a hechsher mitzvah. Talk upon him. It's the famous Rashi. But either way, the cutting of the wood is not a mitzvah. Lav mitzvah lakois isn't a mitzvah to hit. Lav milsi da ami raya toivim is ohayil l'ashivim and amikra atzma. I could have given you a better raya. In other words, it's true that cutting of the wood for the atzim arachol for the sukkah is only a hechsher mitzvah, but I could have given you a better raya why chatavas eitzim is rishus from the pasuk itself, which says the word asher, the lav chatav mitzvah, because it says the word asher. Then we say the same thing. The chora applies to asher yitam of yischat. You're going to tell me it only applies to an optional case of tumah where a person decided to become tumah. He didn't have a choice. But he did have a choice, sorry. But if he didn't have a choice, then you're not going to tell me that. Only such a situation of chayiv kares. But were it to be meis mitzvah, hakanami the pot, you take pot to be kares because you didn't have a choice to become tummy. The Gemara says you're right. From the word asher, we taka would be moitzi meis mitzvah. But there's other psukim, tamayia, which includes Mace Mitzvah. So the Gemara says, well, you can't tell me that because Tommy is the Rabbi's Tful Yom Sheim Nichtas Lemigdash Anish Kares. That it's Tful Yom who went to mikveh but is waiting for Shkia that he's also Anish Kares. The Rabbi's Mechusik Kippurim. The word Tumasei Boy is to be Merab Mechusik Kippurim. To include Mechusik Kippurim, Mechusik Kippurim. You know, Oisen Tumis Etzicha. Oisen Tumis Etzicha is carbon. A certain tumas which need a carbon. The Tavel the Harif Shimshi Taka did Tefillah, and he Taka waited till Shkia. The Loy Hevi Kaparas, but he didn't bring his kapar. And Nichtas Lemigdash, and he went to the base of Migdash. How do I know he's still chayav? We know he chayav from the word Tum Asai Boy. The Arba Tumas Heina Tunas carbon, the 4 tumas which need a carbon, Hazav, Yilad. So these are situations where after Tefillah, and after waiting to Shkia from that night, the next day you need to bring a carbon, only then are you fully tahar. So the word Tamayiyah and Tomasi Boy is needed for that. So how do I know that Mace Mitzvah is also included in Chiyuv Kares? If he goes in, someone who's Matama for Mace Mitzvah, if he goes into the Beis Hamikdash, if he subsequently goes into the Beis Hamikdash, we oid come in, oid Tomasi Boy, oid Kra. You say a drush. The word oid is an extra word for a drush. It's a nice long amud, but Baruch Hashem we got through it. And so